So as you may or may not know, today, the 22nd of July 2020, is the 23rd anniversary of one of the greatest manga in history, One Piece. The series that my channel is branded after, the series that I make all my content about. One Piece is by far one of my favourite series of all time, and it's a series I've been following for over half of my life. So an occasion like this, the 23rd anniversary of a series that is older than me, it is quite the occasion, and it is beautiful to sit back, look at all the years that have passed, all of the content that we've received from Oda himself, all of these chapters, all of these episodes, all of these movies, all of the time we've spent with this fictional verse. I have rewatched and reread One Piece numerous times. It's a series I will forever cherish, and for this occasion, for the 23rd anniversary of One Piece, I wanted to make a video that's a bit more personal, because obviously I do make videos about the current arc, I make videos about the current chapters, I make videos about characters that are relevant currently, but I don't really talk about One Piece as a whole, One Piece and the things I love about it the most. I rarely share my opinion on here, like outside of power scaling debates and whatnot. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 10 favourite characters in One Piece from start to finish. Instead of taking the typical approach where I give you my top 10 characters and give brief words for each character, I'm going to be doing it a little differently, where I tell you the character and tell you my favourite scene with this character or of this character. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because the reasons I love these characters are pretty orthodox. Everybody loves these characters for similar reasons. You probably love these characters for the same reasons I do. So instead of me saying things you probably already know, I'd rather share even more of my opinion and tell you guys what my favourite scene of that specific character is. The reason I'm doing top 10 favourite characters is because that is what was the most voted for option in the poll that I released on my community tab yesterday. If you want to be more involved with the channel and be a bit more interactive with myself, make sure you check out my community posts. I have a lot of stuff up there. I drop some polls there often. Just check it out, because I try to engage with you guys as much as I can, because you guys are my subscribers. I want to give you guys the content you want to see, and I want to just engage with you guys and see what you like about this channel and what you would like to see in the future. Before I start, I also do want to say I do change my mind a lot, so 6 months from now, I might have a very different list to what I have now. The only thing I don't see changing is probably my top 3, but other than that, it's open to change, because my top 3 about 3-4 months ago was different to it is now. Obviously a lot changes in a community like this where I'm talking about One Piece every single day for hours on end sometimes. You develop a newfound love for certain characters, you go back and you start to dislike characters that you once liked, and there's just a lot of your mind being changed because of different discussions we have, which is totally natural, and that is what I expect. But what I do want from you guys is for you guys to comment your own top 10 lists as of now in the comment section down below, and try to include some of the reasons why you love these characters so much. So, before I get into the top 10 and start to rank my top 10 favourite characters in the series, I want to give 3 honourable mentions. 3 characters who I love just as much as some of the characters on this list, but they unfortunately didn't make the cut because, you know, it's hard to choose just 10 characters in a series so massive as One Piece, you know, with over 1,000 characters. Skimming this down to just 10 was an incredible task, so it's gonna be tough for me. The first honourable mention is Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, or you guys may know him by his name when he was an admiral, Akainu. Akainu is a character who is actually pretty hated by the One Piece fandom because he killed Ace, and because he was the main antagonistic force in Marineford in the War of the Best. I understand why there's a lot of hate for Akainu. It happens in a lot of series. When somebody kills the character you love, you end up hating that character, and you're kind of blinded from seeing all the good that that character has to offer. From Akainu's badassery, to his amazing character design, to his really cool devil fruit, to his ruthlessness and his damn near admirable passion for his ideal, or his main ideal, absolute justice. There's a lot when it comes to Akainu. For a character who's barely on screen, there's a lot to unpack with this character. I'm not going to go any deeper than that because this is just an honorable mention, but there we go. Akainu, one of my honorable mentions. I hope that isn't too unpopular of a take because I love Akainu and I hope you guys do too. The second honorable mention I have for you guys is Jinbei. Jinbei is a character who I would honestly describe with a single word: selflessness. He's a very level-headed and calm individual, and despite a lot of the things he's gone through, he has stuck by Luffy's side for the entire time. I find his loyalty to Luffy to be one of the most beautiful things in the entire series, alongside a few other characters' loyalties to their captains. This is a character who hasn't been with us for as long as the other Straw Hats, because obviously there was a lot of things that he had to get done that stopped him from fully officially joining the crew up until this point, but he still stayed as loyal to Luffy as any one of the other Straw Hats. And that's one thing I truly love about Jinbei. I am incredibly glad he is in Wano now, and I hope to see some greatness from Jinbei in this arc and arcs to come. Knight of the Sea, Jinbei, that is my second honorable mention. Third honorable mention, we have Blackbeard. Now, Blackbeard is an interesting one because there actually isn't that much to go off of, and the only reason he is this high is because of the sheer presence this man has. There has never, and I genuinely mean this, right? There has never been a time where Blackbeard was on screen and it wasn't entertaining. Some of the best moments in the entire series include Blackbeard. The second I knew this character was going to be one of the greatest antagonists in history once he's fully fleshed out is when he showed up in Impel Down, right? And he had this whole thing with Luffy and he was just pulling something shady. At first, we're reading it, we don't know what his objectives are, we just know he's in Impel Down, we don't know what he's up to. And then all of a sudden he says, in a few hours, I am going to put on a show that is going to shake the world. And we're waiting for it, right? For the rest of the saga, leaving Impel Down, going into Marineford, we don't know what could possibly shake the world. Hell, we are literally reading about a man that can physically shake the world, and he is physically shaking the world. Whitebeard is here, admirals are here, the biggest war in the history of the series at that point is going on, and we're still waiting on how Blackbeard could potentially shake the world with whatever he has planned. And then he shows up at the end of the war, and he completely outshines everything else that happened by taking Whitebeard's fruit and not only literally but also metaphorically shaking the world with his presence. Blackbeard is a force to be reckoned with, and I cannot wait for his full characterization and development, and I definitely think he has the potential to be one of, if not the very best character in the entire series once we get everything about him. Okay, so there we go, there are my 3 honorable mentions. It is time for the top 10. Hopefully this doesn't take too long because I don't want this to be an hour-long video. But all we're going to do is I'm going to tell you the character, I'm going to tell you my favorite scene, why I love that scene, and then we're going to move on to the next character. In 10th place, I have Nami, the first female character on this list and the only female character on this list. Nami is my favorite female character in One Piece, not by far. Robin is there, but I do prefer Nami specifically because of her role in the post-time skip. She was one of my favorite things about Whole Cake Island. She had that beautiful moment in Fisherman Island with Jinbei where she, took his apology and told him, you don't even need to apologize. It's none of your concern. I have grown from that, and that is why I love Nami. She also had a beautiful moment in Punk Hazard, and she's just one of the most wholesome characters in the series, outside of when she's chasing money, but that's just a gag and it's hilarious, and I don't mind that anyway, even if that was a part of her character. My favorite Nami moment is actually a fight. We aren't actually going to be getting many fights in this list of top 10s because fights aren't usually my favorite thing about One Piece, but Nami's fight against Miss Doublefinger is one of the greatest fights in the series because that was a fight where Nami was actually up against someone truly threatening, and this was a point where she wasn't all that powerful at all. She didn't have Zeus back then. She didn't even have, the buffed up Klimatact. It was the first time she had ever used the Klimatact, and she had to learn how to use it in the midst of battle. My favorite thing about the fight is when she literally used her foot and stepped through the needles or spikes coming off of this lady in order to hold her in place and attack her with one of her tempos. Amazing moment that showed how far Nami was willing to go to defeat her opponent and ultimately save Alabasta for Vivi and just for the innocent people who were being oppressed by Crocodile and Baroque works. In 9th place, I have my favourite Marine, or at least favourite current Marine, Smoker. Vice Admiral Smoker. Smoker is a character who is actually loved by a lot of fans for various reasons, and it's probably because he's one of the only good Marines. We have Fujitora, Kobe, and Smoker. There's obviously a few more who could classify as good Marines, like potentially Garp. I don't know if we want to count Sengoku as a good Marine because he does his job and he doesn't try to go against his job, and the people he works for aren't necessarily good, so it gets confusing with people like Sengoku. But with Smoker, it's a lot more straightforward because my favorite scene of Smoker in the entire series is when he is on the Denden Mushi talking to some higher ups who are telling him to take the credit for defeating Crocodile, and he tells them to go and eat shit. This is obviously an unofficial translation of One Piece, but I don't care. That is what he said to me. I don't care if this isn't what happened in the official. He basically says, tell them to go eat shit. This is real justice, and it is such a beautiful scene. And even in the official translations where he doesn't tell them to go and eat shit, it's still a very cool scene because it's still him basically telling them to go and eat shit. He refuses to take credit for something he didn't do, and he finds it dishonorable, and he refuses to abide by these rulings even if it's someone on the higher up telling him this is what he has to do. And that's because he's a good guy. He wants the people to know the truth. He doesn't want to feed the public lies in order to keep this fake image of perfection for the world government and feed them this propaganda. He would rather tell his own superiors to go and eat shit than to stoop as low as doing something as dishonorable as this. And that is why Smoker is one of my favorite characters in One Piece. I really hope he shows up in Wano. That's like a massive fan dream of mine. I hope he pulls up with Tashigi, because this is honestly an arc where Smoker can thrive. There are so many candidates for him to fight, and with X Drake being here, for all we know, Smoker has joined Sword and is now upholding his own sense of justice with this secret special faction. That would be incredibly cool, and I hope we get that. My 8th favourite character in One Piece is Trafalgar Law. Now, when it comes to Law, he is one of the most loved characters in the One Piece fandom, so there is literally no reason for me to tell you guys why I love him so much. A lot of you guys probably already know what there is to love about this character. I'm sure you guys must love Law too. He is a phenomenal character, and one of the best things about the post-time skip so far, I'd say him and Doflamingo are the greatest characters that we have had fleshed out in the post-time skip. So instead of telling you guys what I love about Law, I'm going to tell you guys what my favourite Trafalgar Law moment is in the series so far, and this is actually my favourite chapter in the post-time skip, chapter 690, where he slices Virgo in half, as well as Punk Hazard in half, and goes on to deliver one of the most badass speeches we have had in the series up until this point. The main reason I love this scene so much, there's the badass aspect, there's how cool it is, how incredible of a feat it is, the words he's saying, the way it's drawn, the way Doflamingo genuinely looks pissed off at Law's words, and this is a character who is always composed, and there's so much to love about it, right? But to me, the single greatest thing about this moment is its long-term significance and relevance. This is a perfect instance of actions speak louder than words. And the reason I say that is because the words that Law said, anybody can say. The words he is saying are massive. It's as if they're too big for his own boots. He is challenging the entire era. He is saying, I am about to make a move that no one else in the entire world has been willing to make so far. And the thing that makes this so great is that we are currently in the Wano arc, and Law, he truly did make that move. He went on to Dressrosa, defeated Joker, and moved on to Wano now, and he is challenging one of the 4 Emperors of the Sea, who he hopes to defeat alongside the help of Luffy and the Wano Samurai, and that is what he is actually aspiring to do and attempting to do right now. Law didn't just say he was going to do something, Law said it, and he went ahead and he is currently attempting to do it. And that is why this scene is so beautiful to me. And when this arc is done and the Battle of Wano has ended, and I know Kaido is most likely defeated, as well as potentially even Big Mom, we're going to look back at that moment and we're going to give him a round of applause, because he really did it. He didn't just break the gears, he changed and reshaped the entire structure of the great age of piracy. What Law is attempting to achieve through defeating Kaido alongside Luffy will create a change that is just as big as the change that followed the death of Whitebeard. This is something that is going down in history, and this speech in chapter 690 is the beginning of it all. My 7th favourite character is the first character on this list who is unluckily no longer with us. Portugas D. Ace, Fire Fist Ace. There are honestly countless reasons why I love Ace, and I've come to notice that in the community, a lot of people don't like Ace, particularly for his final moments, particularly for his, I guess you could say, impulsive decision to turn around and attack Akainu, who was, seemingly merely taunting him. And I appreciate this perspective. I appreciate the people who dislike Ace for these final moments, and I can understand how one can come to that conclusion. I actually love Ace for these final moments. It is very indicative of the man he was. It was something that is a staple of his character, and it wouldn't have made any sense for him to do anything else in that moment. And the most beautiful thing about all of it, the most painfully beautiful thing about all of that, is the fact that this final impulse decision, it cost him his life. It was the ultimate sacrifice. If Ace hadn't turned around in that moment, he wouldn't have lost his life in that moment. And that is why I love it, because he paid the ultimate price for his character flaw, his hot-headedness, his fiery nature, and his impulsiveness. All of that came full circle, and he ended up with a fist through his chest. That is what happened to Ace because of his character flaw, and that is what I appreciate. When a character flaw actually has some severe significance, when a character flaw is actually touched up upon in the narrative and it genuinely affects the plot. If it wasn't for this character flaw, Ace wouldn't be dead right now. He wouldn't have turned around and he would have made it out of Marineford. But because of the character he was, because of that flaw that he had, he died. And he paid the ultimate cost for it. And I love that about his character. He's beautifully written, and that is a perfect way for him to go out, because he died in the same way that he lived. Unfortunately, he never grew out of this hot-headedness, but that's fine. That happens. Some people don't have that chance, and that's the lesson that we learned through the character of Portugas D. Ace. Oh, and I guess I should quickly say my favourite moment for Ace, and that is right at the end of his fight with Blackbeard, where he says, "I am going to make Whitebeard the king," and he's holding up the massive Entei or Flame Emperor, and he's going head to head with Blackbeard, and half of the island, Bonaro Island, is covered in darkness and the other half is covered in fire, and this is genuinely one of the most beautiful scenes and greatest cliffhangers in the history of manga. Honestly, that narrator's quote at the end of that chapter, saying that this fight would be known as the trigger for a massive war to come, that narrator's quote is one of the greatest instances of building hype I have ever come across in a manga. My 6th favourite character in One Piece is Sir Crocodile, former warlord of the sea, one of the coolest antagonists ever. This guy is just, I love his character design, I love his devil fruit, I love his demeanour, I love how ambitious he once was, I love the fact that he's basically Moria who never gave up. That's one of the main things I love about Crocodile. He took a massive loss. Obviously we don't know the context of this loss, but he took a massive loss against Whitebeard, but that didn't stop him from trying. After he took this loss, he went to Alabasta and came up with a plan, and that highlights how ambitious he was as a character and how much he truly wanted to become the Pirate King, and that's one of his traits that I do love the most. My favourite Crocodile moment is actually from Marineford. This was very hard to pick because there are a ton of moments that I love for Crocodile. There's a few moments in Alabasta when he's holding Vivi up at the balcony. There's another moment in Marineford where he saves Ace's life, but I ended up choosing this one. And this is when he is visibly pissed off at the fact that Whitebeard is basically looking a lot weaker than he remembers him to be. Whitebeard has grown old and sick, and this is pissing Crocodile off. He is shouting at him and he's saying, "This isn't the man who I lost to. I refuse to basically believe that this is how weak and frail you look in front of me." Obviously, Whitebeard is still one of the strongest men in the world, but to Crocodile, he sees it as an insult that Whitebeard isn't capable of squashing everybody there, because in the past, Whitebeard more than likely effortlessly squashed Crocodile, and right now, Whitebeard can't effortlessly squash anybody that comes ahead of him, and that's what's hurting Crocodile. It makes him feel even more weak that the man who effortlessly squashed him isn't able to effortlessly squash anybody who comes in his way. I need Crocodile back in the story at some point. I really hope he can have a role to play in the future. Perhaps he will take over as the king of the underworld in Doflamingo's stead, because Doflamingo's in Impel Down. Who knows? But Crocodile is a character with a ton of potential, and I hope that potential was put to use. Now, at 5th place, my 5th favorite character in One Piece is Doflamingo. I literally just mentioned him when talking about the king of the underworld. You see, for a very, very long time, I had Crocodile above Doflamingo in terms of who I preferred as a character. But I very recently changed my mind upon reading a lot of Dressrosa again, and rereading some other Doflamingo interactions, like his stuff in Jaya, at the end of Skypiea, other Doflamingo stuff from like just his little tiny cameo in Sabaody, and his very, very infamous speech from Marineford. Doflamingo is a lot like Blackbeard in the sense that every single time he has shown up on screen, it has been incredibly, incredibly entertaining. Every time this guy opens his mouth, he says something epic in one way or another. And to me, the best scene of Doflamingo is and always will be, unless he somehow manages to top it, the scene in Marineford where he makes his massive, infamous speech and he talks about the truth, the harsh reality behind what justice truly is, and how one can go about determining what justice truly is. And these words here are so great to me because of their relevancy in the series as a whole. We have seen multiple times in One Piece that Marines can be evil, pirates can be good. There is no clear-cut answer. At the end of the day, whoever is in power makes the rules. And this is something that isn't just relevant in One Piece, but in the real world too. And that's why I love this scene so much, because of how thematically rich it is and what it represents. What is crazy to me is that Doflamingo doesn't just have the best speech in One Piece, but I am genuinely inclined to say that he has the second best speech in One Piece too, when he talks about the Throne Wars en route to Impel Down, when he's chained up, talking to Tsuru, talking about the chaos that would ensue upon taking this man to Impel Down. He held the reins to the New World, and now that he's imprisoned, it's absolute chaos. And it's crazy because there's so much else to talk about. His incredibly unique and versatile fighting style, his very, very unique character design, one of the best character designs in the series. I mean, this man walks around with shirts and a pink fluffy jacket. Not to mention the sunglasses that he wears indoors in winter at nighttime. And if you listen to Ed Sheeran, you'll understand that reference. Next. At 4th place, my 4th favorite character in One Piece. I bet you guys were wondering when this guy would show up, right? We have Kuzan, former Marine Admiral Aokiji. This is the character who my channel is basically modeled after, Aofiji. I mixed the word Fiji and Aokiji, and that is what I got. People call me Fiji, my YouTube name is Aofiji. Interesting story behind that, maybe I'll share it one day. It's nothing special. I had no idea what to call myself when I was making a Reddit account. I chose Aofiji because I wanted something clean. I don't know how the hell it came to my mind, but yeah. Enough of that. Aokiji. This guy is cold personified. And not the bad kind of cold. I'm talking about the slang kind of cold. You know when you say, "Oh, that's cold?" Yeah, that's Aokiji. This character is just... the sheer presence this man has is phenomenal. Just like Doflamingo and Blackbeard, there has never been a single time this guy was on screen and it wasn't entertaining. And I've got to say, my favourite scene of this guy has got to be right at the very beginning, when he showed up on Long Ring Longland on his bicycle that he rode across the ocean. Oh, and did I forget to mention, yeah, he rides a bicycle on water because he wants to. That is how cool this man is. To be honest though, he was in the arc for quite a bit and he did quite a few impressive things, like creating an entire continent of ice effortlessly. But the one thing that truly stood out to me and made me fall in love with this character was the fact that he was the first insurmountable wall that the Straw Hats as a collective had come across up until this point. This was the first time that they had met somebody that they truly could not surpass. I mean, the only other person that they met at this point that was that powerful was Mihawk, but Mihawk was just for Zoro to try and overcome. The entire crew could not overcome Aokiji in this instant, and if you were reading this weekly at the time, or if this is your first time watching this or reading this, I'm sure you must have questioned how the hell are these guys going to get out of it. And by a stroke of fate, they luckily managed to get out of it because of Aokiji's relationship with Garp, and the fact that, you know, Aokiji just wasn't bothered to kill them on that day. He had other plans in mind for them. And it's just such a beautiful moment because that's the first time the Straw Hats are introduced to truly terrifying power. This was a trigger for Luffy to go on ahead and try to get stronger. And it also served as the main catalyst for his growth, and that's how he gained Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd. This was what told him, boy, do I need to get stronger. There are people like this out here in the world. There are countless of them. Not only are there multiple marine admirals, but there are probably pirates just as strong as this man, and he can probably destroy our entire crew without blinking an eye. That is the kind of power we're talking. And Aokiji's presence in that first arc, in his debut arc, was perfect at highlighting the immense stakes one must overcome when facing off against the world government and the navy. And from the arc onwards, the mention of an admiral automatically reminds us as the audience and the characters of the sheer overwhelming power of Admiral Aokiji. Later on in Sabodi, when they mentioned that an admiral will come if you punch St. Charlos, every one of the Straw Hats thought in their head, we don't want to deal with an admiral. Because Aokiji, if that guy was to show up right now, we would be done for. And that's what I love about this moment for Aokiji and just Aokiji's character as a whole. He left a very, very long-lasting impression. Arguably one of the greatest character introductions in the series, alongside Kizaru's, Whitebeard's, and Kaido's. It is time for the top 3. My third favourite character in One Piece is Edward Newgate Shirohige Whitebeard. This man, oh my god, I could talk about why I love Whitebeard for hours and hours and hours on end. There is no fictional character I respect as much as I respect Shirohige. This man is phenomenal. What an amazing father. Genuinely the best father I have come across in any fictional series. And trust me guys, I've read a lot of books, I've played a lot of games, I've watched a lot of anime, I've read a lot of manga. There is no father as great as Edward Newgate. There's honestly no point in me talking about why I love Edward Newgate. I mean, I've said enough. There's no man I respect as much as him, guys. So I'm just gonna tell you guys my favorite Whitebeard scene, and that has to be the final spread of chapter 576. This is my favorite double spreaded page of any manga ever. Hell, this is my favorite page. It doesn't have to be a double spread. This is my favorite page in manga. The final spread of chapter 576, one of the greatest moments in the history of manga. The glorious death of Whitebeard. Even with half of his head gone, even after taking 257 sword wounds, being shot by 152 bullets, taking the impact of 46 cannon blasts, even after all of that, this man died standing without taking a single scar or wound on his back. What a goat. Like, this is one of the only times I will use that term unironically. This man is the greatest of all time. Props to Whitebeard and props to Oda for creating this timeless masterpiece of a character. Please respect Whitebeard. This man is phenomenal. My second favourite character in One Piece. You see, the thing with this entire top 3 is that they're a lot closer than they once were. Nowadays, I look at all 3 of these characters in my top 3 and it's hard to choose between them. The only one that's clear is my number 1. My number 1 is set in stone, but even he is like, it's coming closer. Like, my number 2 could perhaps surpass my number 1 sometime. Who knows? And I'm sure you guys were waiting for this answer, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are actually expecting this to be my favourite character in One Piece. My second favourite character is Roronoa Zoro. So, there's a lot to talk about with Zoro. I am not gonna bother. I mean, I have so much plans for Zoro on this channel. We're in Wano, the arc that I vehemently believe is Zoro's arc, as much as people tell me it isn't his arc. I'm gonna call it his arc. I make a ton of videos about Zoro already, my expectations for him in this arc, but I'm gonna say this, right? I have quite a hot take when it comes to what my favorite scene for Zoro is. Everybody thinks that Zoro's best moment, without a doubt, is Nothing Happened. And I respect that. It is definitely the number 2, for me at least. Great moment, one of the best moments in One Piece in my opinion. But my favourite scene for Zoro is from chapter 52. And it's a lot like Nothing Happened, to be honest. It's actually the start of that. It's what kicks off the beautiful captain to vice captain dynamic of Luffy and Zoro. Of course, they have a lot of moments like that before this particular moment, but this is what solidified them as a duo to me. This is when I came to appreciate that these two had a connection unlike any one of the other Straw Hats. Obviously, Luffy and Nami's connection is unlike Luffy and all of the other Straw Hats. I'm not saying Luffy and Zoro's connection is the best, but this moment, chapter 52, Oath, this chapter to me contains the greatest Zoro moment up until this point. This is when he puts his sword in the air and he says that he will never lose again and asks if that's okay to the Pirate King. I love this moment for a plethora of reasons. I can honestly sit here and talk to you about it for hours, but we're already nearing the 30-minute mark and I need to get this video done as soon as possible. So I'm just gonna say this. The reason this moment is unlike any other Zoro moment is because this is the first and only time we have truly seen him take an immense, staggering loss. Something that stuck with him for many episodes and chapters to come. This is something that to this day sticks with Zoro. This is something he's always gonna remember when he's at the verge of death. He's gonna remember this loss, and he's gonna remember how he cannot take a loss like that again. This is something long lasting, something that serves as the pinnacle of his character and his ambition for all fights to come, for all obstacles that he's going to face. This was and still is the biggest moment of his life so far, and it's going to remain relevant until the day he finally challenges Mihawk again in an attempt to become the world's strongest swordsman. I love Roronoa Zoro for a multitude of reasons. Honestly, I barely scratched the surface with this short little 2-minute segment talking about him, and I genuinely feel like the YouTube community and just the One Piece fandom as a whole, they do a major disservice to his character and they chalk him down to just a fighter. He's just loyal, he's just cool, he's a lot more deeper than just that. And I really want to do some character analyses and videos focused more on Zoro's character than just his potential in this arc or power scaling, because there's more to him than just fighting. And by making videos just power scaling him, I'm kind of proving them right and making it seem like that's all there is to him, when there truly isn't. There's a lot of greatness that comes with Roronoa Zoro, and I really want to explore that on this channel, and I will make sure to do so in the future. But for now, let's talk about my favorite character in One Piece, Monkey D. Luffy. Pretty cliche and generic answer, right? The main character of the series, my favorite character. Who would have thought? I mean, Luffy is just... This is a series I've been with since I was a kid, right? I don't know if I've told you guys this, but I've been watching One Piece for as long as I can remember. I do like to say Thriller Bark because that's the earliest I can remember me being caught up at, and I've been watching the series properly, and I have a clear memory of Marineford, watching Marineford weekly. I remember that. But when it comes to overall, I don't know when I started watching One Piece. But yeah, the point of me mentioning this is that for as long as I can remember, Monkey D. Luffy has been my favorite character in One Piece. The rubber stretchy boy, I mean, there's so much to talk about when it comes to him, and I actually can't choose a favorite moment for him. There's just so much to choose. I'm gonna have to give you guys 3. I'm gonna have to give you guys my top 3 Luffy moments in no order, because there's just too many good Luffy moments. I can't chalk it down to just the one. So I'm going to give you guys these 3 moments, and hopefully that will explain why I love him without me having to go deeply into explaining his character. Because these 3 moments, they do a good enough job at explaining his character more than any detailed analysis or explanation can. These 3 moments are all very character defining for him. And we're going to kick it off with the first one, and this isn't the favourite by the way, this is just the first one I'm going to mention of the three, and that is the bar scene in Jaya, with Luffy and Zoro, and them getting their shit beaten by Bellamy. And I guess this counts as a Zoro moment too, and that's why they are my top 2 favourite characters. This is one of the main reasons for it. When Nami asks Zoro a few chapters later, why didn't you fight back against those guys in the bar? He just replies to her and says, they weren't standing in our way. Fights that leave nothing but sympathy are rough and they're pointless. There's no point of me wasting my time with people that don't matter. They weren't in our way. They just beat us up and it isn't going to affect us long term. They're not hurting our friends. There's no point of me fighting back against them because these guys don't matter. The only time Luffy fights against somebody is when they are in the way of his dreams or when they harm one of his nakama. If you don't fall under either one of those 2 brackets, then he isn't going to fight you. If you don't get in his way, and if you don't hurt anybody he loves, he is not going to hit you or hurt you or touch you. And the reason I love this is because he has stayed true to this for the entire series. This is something he believes in, and he has stuck to it. His dedication to his ideals and to what he believes in is practically unwavering. He doesn't change his mind on these sort of things. He believes in friendship, dreams, and dying for what you believe in. And this scene does a great job at illustrating this through having his entire ideals challenged, through having his beliefs and dreams challenged, through having alcohol spat in his face, through having his head smashed into windows, through having himself, but still he stays true to what he believes and he doesn't fight unless somebody gets in the way of his dreams or hurts one of his nakama. As long as they aren't in his way, there's no point of fighting them. And this is why I love Luffy. Well, that's one of the reasons I love Luffy. The next scene we're going to be talking about is chapter 398, where he declares war against the world government in order to save Robin. And this ties into the previous scene I just mentioned so beautifully you wouldn't even imagine. In the previous scene I just talked about, Luffy didn't do a single thing to Bellamy because he didn't harm his friends or get in his way. But when you do harm his friends and get in his way, look what happens. He is willing to challenge the entire world to a war if you do so. That is how simple he is. That is how one-dimensional Luffy is. Luffy doesn't care. That is how his approach on the world is. You hurt my friends, I'm going to die for them. And I'm going to kill you in the process. That is how he thinks. And that's what I love about him. And this scene does a terrific job at highlighting that simple-mindedness of Luffy. And I think that's actually one of the best traits of his. The fact that he looks at things very simply and he doesn't read too deeply into things. And it does help that Luffy is a fantastic judge of character, so he isn't usually wrong with this sort of thing. All he needs is a couple seconds and a quick thought, and he knows. He's snappy. He knows what he wants. He knows what to think about you. He knows what is right and he knows what is wrong. And that is why people say Luffy has no sense of morality, and I understand the entire topic of that, and I guess that sort of makes sense, but Luffy's morality will never be wicked or unjust in any way. Because Luffy is too good of a person at the core for him to have any moral issues. The reason why is because he automatically knows what is right and wrong without having to be challenged. He knows if you're a good guy and he knows if you're a bad guy. He doesn't just serve his own interests, he knows if you are good for his interests. That is one thing about Luffy that is very overlooked. And here we are, one of my favourite moments of Luffy's, and this is the scene between himself and Nami during the Arlong Park arc, where she is stabbing herself in the arm and asks for him to help her. Luffy walks up to her, takes off the hat that he treasures greatly, puts it on her head, walks back and screams into the air, "Of course I will." All of the trauma and emotional rage and distress that Nami was suffering from for all of these years came boiling down and culminated into this scene where she just is repeatedly stabbing herself in her arm. She can't stop stabbing herself. This is one of the most darkest scenes we've seen in the series. This is what mental health and oppression can do to somebody. This is what being tortured mentally can do to somebody. And Luffy, somebody who has just been bubbly and happy for as long as we've known him, up until this point in the series we haven't truly seen any form of rage come from Luffy. I mean, we've had serious scenes, but up until this point at Arlong Park, He's just come across as a bit of an idiot and just, you know, the Luffy that we usually have. He takes this, looks at her, puts his hat on her head, and screams with all of his might, "Of course I will. Damn right I'm going to help you." He goes on to beat the shit out of Arlong, and it's one of the most satisfying fights in the series because this was so beautifully executed. You are made to hate Arlong. Arlong is one of the greatest antagonists because you just want to see him lose. When you are that invested into a fight, that is how you know these characters are well written. When you are that emotionally invested. I watch that fight and I damn near tear up, or I have a massive grin on my face because of how much I am rooting for Luffy to beat the hell out of Arlong. Phenomenal fight, phenomenal moment, and that is it for today's video. That was an incredibly long video. None of this was scripted at all. All I have written on the screen is my favorite moments, and that's why I probably spoke for too long at parts, and I do want to apologize for that. But a video like this, a topic I am passionate about like this, I don't feel like it should be scripted, because videos like this is when you burst with excitement and when all your ideas come flowing and you just speak. I don't feel the need of me sitting back and writing this 20-page long script of all of my extensive thoughts and why I love all of these characters so much, because the purest form of my opinion is just me telling you guys what I think straight up without me having to write this massive elaborate script. I hope you guys enjoyed nonetheless. Hopefully I have some similar takes as you guys. Let me know in the comment section what your top 10 favorite characters in One Piece are. Let me know if you enjoy these personal videos and if you'd like to see more of them in the future. I have been Fiji. Thank you guys for tuning in. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment your list down below. Comment your thoughts on my list down below. And subscribe for more One Piece content. I have been Fiji. Peace.